in the chat a link for a PDF that says the immune system and how it works. I think it's not exactly hot off the press. The ink is dry, but it's really very thorough, very readable, very understandable. It doesn't necessarily address nutrition, but it's just how what the immune system is all about. So that's what we're going to do today is talk about nutrition and the immune system. So Barbara, we should have a safe word. Let's just say now. All right, so essentially, when I put together the idea of this one, it's because we are in the flu season and we are in an exceptionally scary, infectious season. And times of illness, people often seek to take special foods or vitamins, and sometimes they are supported by science, and sometimes um, they're supported by experience. And you can't discount experience. We just want to make sure that there's some science behind it. So things like taking extra vitamin C when a cold is coming on, the research says that is a as a supplement. Some people found that it reduced the duration of a cold. Some found that it reduced the severity. Some found no change. So it isn't without support, but it's not as kind of hardcore and set in stone as you like. But things like chicken soup, well established how you feel better. Tea with honey are some popular examples. The thing that's always tricky is that when you read about this is good for your immune system, the immune system is so complicated that you really can't nail one nutrient and the need for more or less of it to boosting your immune system without any other changes or without any other additions. So that's what my last bullet point there is basically emphasizing is that it's an ideal balance of many different factors, not just diet, and especially not by one specific nutrient. So I usually try to use free. I use free clip art, and I'd see here that this is one that probably was one that needed a little pay. So I may pull it out as soon as our session's over. But it shows you where the different parts of the immune system function. Your bone marrow is a part of your immune system. Your intestines provide probably 75 or 80% of your immune protection. Your lymph nodes, lots of different things. So we're now on there. Okay, so now the next one. When we do think, what is the most important set of behaviors that's making your immune system strong? And I call them the 5 S's. So sleep, we all know when you get run down, times go south. So getting enough quality and quantity of sleep. Sun, not only because it helps you make vitamin D, but it also just helps your circadian rhythm. Stress, or actually no stress. So I have there a picture of a woman in a pose for meditation. Now, laughing is the one of the 5, but it doesn't begin with the letter S. So I decided to say snicker. And the more you laugh, the better. It changes levels of things in your brain. It changes your immune system. And exercise, which also doesn't start with the letter S. So I decided to call it sweat. And the picture there shows lots of people in a city setting walking around, biking, doing something to get regular exercise. But of course, you go through the 5 S's. And for me as a dietitian, the most important thing is a balanced diet. So we'll talk about that now. Next one. All right, so on the top of the list of almost all the immune protective role of diet, vitamin C seems to pop up first. And it's thought to increase the production of white blood cells. Now, as I mentioned in that second slide, the immune system is very complicated. So the white blood cells are a large group of cells that differentiate and begin to perform different functions to capture an alien like a bacteria or a virus or what it thinks is a pollen, which is alien. And we know that these things are important. So one of the best sources of vitamin C are fruits, citrus fruits. Excuse me. And we all know citrus fruits, I think, because of great ads, great promotions in supermarkets. But grapefruit, orange, tangerines, lemons, limes, clementines. And while sometimes we might be on a medication, that grapefruit may interfere with how the medication works. Usually you can get that information from your pharmacist. Otherwise, these are great sources of vitamin C. I'm not talking taking a vitamin C supplement. That's a discussion with your medical provider. Next slide. Another good source of vitamin C, because the citrus fruits get all the credit, possibly again advertising, the Florida Citrus Commission. But bell peppers are exceptionally high, as is parsley, but we're going to talk about bell peppers, where 1 ounce of a red bell pepper contains twice as much vitamin C as an equal amounts of citrus fruit. They're also a rich source of beta carotene, which is going to come up in a moment as another important nutrient for immune system. It help, Vitamin C goes beyond just immunity, although we are talking flu season and protecting ourselves. So anything else that beta carotene does, that it helps to protect the layers of the barriers of the body. So the inside of your lungs, your skin, the covering of your eyes. All those are important sources or functions of beta carotene. So bell pepper is like a twofer. You can't go wrong. Unless you don't like them. And then there's lots of other sources of vitamin C. Next one. So broccoli is a great source of vitamin C. It's rich in other minerals as well, packed with beta carotene, also A. These are all antioxidants, and there's something called indoles, which is probably a word that isn't thrown around as nearly as much as vitamin C, but indoles are important in a certain pathway to protect your body from cell mutations or DNA mutations. And broccoli is a great source of fiber. But I'm going to pause for a second and ask, how do you like it? I mean, I grew up like most of us with your broccoli being boiled, and there's hardly anything as smelly. And broccoli and cabbage, those guys are all cousins. So you could roast your broccoli. You could eat it raw. But I know I get in very passionate conversations with people about, but if the longer you cook it, you're killing all the nutrients. And that's a good comment to stop and answer, or at least fill in some details. Nutrients are sensitive to things that they're exposed to. So vitamins and minerals can be influenced by air, by light, sunlight, ultraviolet light, can be influenced by heat, and by water. So the next slide is meant to kind of spell all this out with far too much information, but I'll be happy to send you this table as on a Word document. So the idea is that the different nutrients shown on the far left column, vitamin A. Now, vitamin A in animals is called retinol. In plants, it's called beta carotene. And in this case, we're talking beta carotene, all right? Vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, B12, pyridoxine. What's the deal? If it says very sensitive to temperature, it means the higher you heat it, the more you're going to destroy. So in that case, you'd say, well, if for something high in vitamin A, maybe I shouldn't heat it at all. But if you don't like it, like I don't like broccoli that's raw, I'm going to heat it because I'll get my vitamin A from another food if my broccoli is a little bit lost. Noting it's very sensitive to oxygen. So anything with beta carotene, like if you have a cut cantaloupe or a cut squash or a cut orange, you should definitely cover it in something airtight so that oxygen doesn't get to it, because that's a vitamin that is sensitive to air. But look at where it says stable. So riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, those B vitamins, they don't care how much air flows by. They're all going to be pretty stable. You'll find those a lot in grains like wheat and corn and barley. And so those are not necessarily so sensitive to those different things. Well, let me not spend too much time. I think the takeaway here is all nutrients are sensitive to something, but all nutrients are also can endure a lot. So the most important thing when we're talking about eating a balanced diet with lots of vegetables and sources of vitamin C is to include them in the way you enjoy them the most. Because, the vegetable that stays on the plate isn't helping anybody. And I want you to be able to swallow it, enjoy it, and say, this was good food, all right? And it helped my immune system. Next slide. Okay, another important nutrient that's been shown to help the immune system is vitamin D. Now, the best way for all us human beings to get our vitamin D is sunlight. And the recommendation is a minimum of 20 minutes a day on your arms and face. And we all can hear the American Cancer Society saying, protect yourself from ultraviolet light because of the risk of skin cancer, other skin damage. So there's got to be a happy medium. This is not go to the beach at high noon and spread out and just let the sun cook you. This is as much as possible in the early hours of the day or the latter hours of the day. Let the sun shine on your skin, because under the surface of your skin is a substance called 7-dehydrocholesterol. That's a mouthful. I stay up at night practicing the pronunciation of that word. And that is converted to vitamin D when exposed to sunlight. Now, if you're not getting much sun, which is the truth for the majority of human beings, then you can get vitamin D from foods. And as you see, there are a variety of foods, and the biggest surprise might be mushrooms. That anytime you're getting mushrooms, you're getting vitamin D. It's also in fatty fish, it's in egg yolk, it's in some cheese. And in fact, if those mushrooms are exposed to sunlight, that's right, bring the mushrooms home, put them on a cookie sheet and put them in the windowsill for about an hour. And you get more vitamin D. Isn't that amazing? Now, I put in quotation marks, is thought to boost the body's natural defenses, because that is anyone here who says, what do you mean by that, and prove it, I'm going to come up a little short. So I just want to go to the next slide where I've quoted the abstract of an article. Essentially, it's talking about vitamin D deficiency is associated with poor immunity. Optimal vitamin D levels are associated with better immunity. In other words, people who have autoimmune diseases such as multiple sclerosis or rheumatoid arthritis are associated with low levels of vitamin D. We probably have heard a lot in the health news about COVID, and complications have often been more severe in people with low levels of vitamin D. So there seems to be that there's a vitamin D receptor that's what's called expressed on immune cells. That means if the receptor is there, the immune cells are saying, I got my catcher's mitt ready, bring me the vitamin D, because that's going to help me turn into the superpower that I need to be. So we know vitamin D will help our quote unquote natural defenses, and it needs to be in adequate levels. So my very last line on that slide is that supplements might be suggested. And that's, again, a decision that you might want to make with your healthcare provider. When people have been found to have vitamin D deficiencies, extremely low levels of blood levels of vitamin D, they are given a prescription dose, which is then tapered, and then you can go to your local pharmacy and get an off-the-shelf vitamin D. But once again, please let that be a conversation with your health provider. Next slide. All right, vitamin D. E, duh. I'll learn my alphabet. Just give me a few more weeks. So this is what's called an antioxidant, because oxygen is, while we have to have oxygen for life, when oxygen is inside tissues and it's sort of randomly bouncing around like a ping pong ball, it has to be captured. And vitamin E is one of those things that will capture that random or radical oxygen. And vitamin E is found in quite a few foods, but it's another fat-soluble vitamin, as is vitamin D, as is beta-carotene and vitamin A. So you'll see that it will be in foods which are somewhat fatty, such as vegetable oils, wheat germ, safflower, sunflower, corn, soybean. Vitamin E is in nuts. The almond growers will happily send you a million emails telling you how wonderful almonds are, and that if you ate about 40 almonds a day, you would get your vitamin E recommendation in one sitting. I'm not sure I want to eat 40 almonds a day. I like them, but don't push it. All right. Also, leafy vegetables. We met broccoli and spinach earlier. And also in fortified cereals. Fortified cereals are also sources of vitamin D. So Make sure you are enjoying. If you can get the theme so far, it's a lot of plants, plant-based foods. With the inclusion of the vitamin D sources like cheese and egg and fish, a lot of the very important nutrients for our immune system are found in vegetables, fruits, and beans. Next one. All right, garlic. So, garlic may not have an immediate immune system effect. Excuse me. But it seems to support anti-inflammatory. One sec. Support an anti-inflammatory pathway. And when the body is under a constant state of inflammation, the immune system is suppressed. So while garlic is well established at having active compounds that have a measurable effect on the body, we can also say, kind of to the side, if you eat a lot of garlic, you'll probably never catch a cold because nobody is going to get within 6 feet of you unless they're eating garlic too. All right. Next slide, please. Ginger, similar to garlic, has a anti-inflammatory effect with a lot of good science behind it, science studies done around the world. And we also know ginger has a long history in experience. So between the science and the experience, ginger may help decrease inflammation. And as I said, for supporting the immune system, a constant state of inflammation will suppress your immune system. So anti-inflammatory foods are very beneficial. Reduce sore throat, inflammatory disease. My daughter wasn't feeling great a couple of weeks ago, and her boyfriend's mom sent her something that she says, quote unquote, some disgusting ginger concoction. She was better the next day. Yeah, I'm jealous that the boyfriend's mom did it. Okay. All right. It also may help with nausea. And there's a substance in gingerol. There's several substances. This is just one of them mentioned here. A relative of capsaicin may help decrease chronic pain. And pain causes inflammation. It's like a brain sense of discomfort. And you have pain memory, which can also suppress the immune system. So while all these may not necessarily go after the immunoglobulins or affect gut microorganisms or affect bone marrow, they do affect systemically in a way to improve how our immune system will respond. Next slide, please. Spinach. Antioxidants, good beta carotene. So we're saying, similar to broccoli, it matters how you like it. As with all the vegetables, cooking it will actually make some of the nutrients in the vegetable more available because it softens the fiber. Cooking it with a little bit of fat will also make the fat soluble nutrients more available. And I would just offer a little caution because I know a lot of people like to put a big handful of spinach in a daily smoothie, or put spinach in a salad. Spinach is good food. It's got that beta carotene. It's got the B vitamins, but you don't absorb the calcium from it because of something called oxalic acid, and you don't absorb the iron very well. It might actually interfere with your body's absorbing iron and calcium from other foods in the same meal. So, I would, those phrases that when we were young, we used to think, oh no, we got to get more serious. Phrases like everything in moderation, spinach in moderation. I don't know that needs to be a daily food. There's other green leafy things that one can substitute, or other fruity things that one can substitute. So next slide, please. I hope I'm not going too fast and I run out of things to cover in my 1 hour presentation. Okay, probiotics. Here's one where it's a fascinating field where there's research going on all over the world in different labs. I had the pleasure to sit in on a webinar. I understood about 60% of what they were talking about at the New York Academy of Sciences, where studies are being done to look at how the gut microorganisms affect depression, anxiety, affect cholesterol levels, affect outcomes for the immune system. But we aren't quite at a place where we're the field of research to say, walk in the store, buy this box with this content, this particular colony of microorganisms and this particular amount. But we do know that eating foods with live microorganisms is exceptionally protective of the immune system and other functions in the body. Because remember, one of the major first line of immune system protection is in the intestines, in the gastrointestinal tract. So studies show that probiotics boost immunity by increasing production of mucin. Mucin sounds like something that's going to stick to your teeth, right? But it's a protein and carbohydrate molecule found in saliva, found in the lining of the gastrointestinal tract. So it's a barrier, and it's very important to keep that barrier strong. Helps protect against friction and erosion. It also increases the production of something called immunoglobulin A, which, if you want to read that PDF that I put a link in the chat, will tell you more about that. It can decrease inflammatory mediators. Now, an inflammatory mediator, once again, if you've kept up with some of the health news that's inflammatory response that the body mounts to this infection. And the probiotic seems to keep the body from over expressing inflammation. That's some inflammation is normal and part of the protection, but overexpressing isn't. And it can decrease the production of what's called allergy-specific IgE. Okay, why is that useful? Outside of being infected by a flu or something, most people experience food allergies or pollen allergies. And when you're experiencing a pollen allergy, you get an elevated level of this circulating immunoglobulin called IgE. And that extra IgE sometimes makes you react to things that you're not allergic to. So this IgE elevation may make you extra sensitive to eating carrots. So you eat a carrot and you say, my mouth feels itchy. But 3 months later, your mouth won't feel itchy because the pollen that drove that IgE level up is gone. So probiotics seems to cut back on that excess IgE response. Next slide, please. So where can we get probiotics? Well, good cultures of yogurt. So I love yogurt because I love that sourness, but if it's not your thing and you feel like you want to get yogurt with a flavor, I think that's a reasonable compromise to make. Yogurt's good food. But as you see, also kefir, sauerkraut, kombucha. Yeah, I've tried kombucha. I'm thinking I'm going to keep looking for other sources of probiotic. Natto is another product that is of Japanese culture origin. Very good source of live active cultures. Beer, okay, raw cheese, and let's see what else we have in that picture there. And I mentioned sauerkraut. Okay, next slide, please. So the probiotic is the food which actually has microorganisms in it that when they go into our system will join the colonies or support the colonies that are already in our intestines. A prebiotic is basically the buffet for the microorganisms that already live in the intestines. So we would, as a dietitian, I would identify these as things that are in plants that your body just can't break down. We don't have the enzymes to break it down. But once it enters our intestines, our microbial neighbors will break it down. And unfortunately, when they break next one. Next, there, okay. Up, before turmeric, before green tea, before protein. I see Barbara. Barbara has an expression on her face that
I
says,
don't
"What's
know
going on?"
what I did. I apologize. Let me keep going back because I think I'm just
I'll keep,
way off.
I'll keep looking.
You just keep
So,
talking and an end
I'll
of
keep
slideshow.
chatting.
Oh, I went in the wrong direction. There we go. I'm
Okay,
going to get back and I apologize for,
we're good.
okay.
Listen, we're hanging in there.
Thank you.
No,
Obviously,
the
this is
deal.
my first gig and I'm way overpaid here. Okay.
I doubt that.
All right, there we go.
Or maybe we could all love a little more pay. So the prebiotics basically are the fibrous parts of plants that our microorganisms eat and appreciate, and often they thank us by giving us bloating and gas. I'll do just as well with a thank you card, but this is what we often get. But what we know is that these are the things that are selectively preferred by the microorganisms, the protective microorganisms that live in our intestines. So I don't think I've had a Jerusalem artichoke ever in my life, but kale, leeks, legumes, milk, oats, onion, these are things that definitely are reasonable parts of our everyday menu. And remember, these are not necessarily immune boosting, but they support the microorganisms that provide the very important role of um, the barrier and the protection of the intestinal lining. Okay, next slide. Okay, now turmeric is another one with a lot of medical support and a lot of generations of experience as an anti-inflammatory. Um, it doesn't, the effect again on the immune system is indirect in that it has a anti-inflammatory role that helps with keeping the body from suppressing or overstimulating the immune system. I hope that would make sense. It has been shown to help with rheumatoid arthritis. I think my break of the word there is a little crazy, but you got it. Research also shows that Jerusalem artichokes and everyday artichokes, yes, but I would qualify that by checking before I swear on that answer. Um, can take, so they also, the turmeric says when you finished a workout, you have definitely had muscle damage. That's what a workout is. It means that you stressed your muscle fibers so much that they broke. But when they rebuild thicker and stronger. So it seems as though turmeric can also help with that induced muscle damage with the rebuilding. Okay, so if you're on a blood thinner, is it okay to take turmeric? I think it is okay. That would like a warfarin or coumadin, but I would double check before I swear on that one. I could get ahead of that next time for you, or I could even Google it quickly while we're in a Q&A. Next slide. Green tea. So, wow, green tea should be on everybody's, kitchen table. Not necessarily 17 cups a day, but it has been associated with so many benefits. And it has to do with the fact that the green tea is not oxidized in order to turn dark. You know how you cut an apple and it turns dark when it's an open surface? And so tea leaves are allowed to oxidize and get darker, turn red or black, and that's what our kind of Lipton is. So green tea is without that. It has these flavonoids, notably, I will just say EGCG because I will trip over that word, epigallocatechin. And it seems to be a very protective substance. There's research on improving breast density for women who are at risk for breast cancer because of dense breast tissue. And it's something that if you consume 1, 2, 3 cups a day, small cups, not the the Starbucks grande, but sipping it here and there, it seems to be very protective and support immune function. Next one. By the way, I am sure there is a person who is listening, or certainly not far away, who would like to talk for another hour at least about the different kinds of tea and their different properties and their different uses. And I am not that well versed with it. So when I say green tea, you can probably go in the dollar store and find a box. But if you went to Chinatown, you would see 100 different varieties with different uh, prescriptive functions. So I'm saying in a very general way, green tea has been found to be protective. And if that means you take green tea powder and stir it into your vanilla ice cream, why not? Okay. Now, as we've talked about things that are helping the immune system, let me go back to, we're talking about someone who is trying to boost or support it, make sure that you're not in any way sabotaging your immune system. In very, very extreme circumstances, a person that is so protein deficient that if you give them an immunization, they will not be able to form antibodies. That's an extreme circumstance. It exists on the face of the earth, and it, for all I know, it could be existing here in Northwest Bronx. But the important thing is make sure that we have given our immune system the basic things it needs to build cells, and that would be protein and also energy. When you have an illness, or when the immune system is kicking into high gear, it needs energy to make all those new white blood cells and those antibodies and those cytokines and so on. So this is not the time to skimp on calories or skimp on protein. And the quality of protein is important. So I have found a picture that shows broccoli. That's because of all the pictures I was looking for. I couldn't find one that didn't have something that was really not a good protein source. So we're going to let the broccoli live there. But let's be real, broccoli is not a major source of protein. However, which by the way is a caution, when you go on a Google search and you ask for sources of omega-3 fats, for example, or sources of anything, you will get beautiful photographs done by fabulously talented food journalists, food photographers. But some of the stuff in there is just not right. So, cheese is an excellent source of protein. The flesh of an animal, and I kind of say that with intended harshness, because we're eating animals' muscles or animals' organs, but it's an excellent source of protein, as are eggs. But let's love our beans, the red beans, black beans, pink beans, black eyed peas, chickpeas, all excellent sources of protein, especially when combined with a grain. So rice and beans. But let's talk more beans and very little rice. And we're talking peanut butter and bread. Peanut butter is an excellent source of protein. It's a legume, and bread is a good complement to that. So it's possible to get excellent protein without eating animal products or without eating meat, but the all across the day, make sure that your protein intake is not skimpy. Um, Next slide, please. Now here's one that pops up a lot: lauric acid. Lauric acid is what's called a medium chain saturated fat. It's found in a number of vegetable oils, but notably in coconut oil. And you'll hear the coconut oil camp, that two very extreme. Talk about red and blue. Um, there's the camp that, I mean, I could put one foot in each one. That says saturated fat is not good. It's going to raise your cholesterol. If you have any issues about high cholesterol, don't eat saturated fat, or limit. And coconut is very high in saturated fat, but it seems as though this lauric acid has an interesting function outside of the fact that it's found in coconut and some other fats. There was a study that I read about, the recruiting and the proposal in April, that was going to be done in the Philippines, in which lauric acid was going to be administered orally to help people who have been infected with COVID. It's been used, and if you were to, let's say, do a Google Scholar search on lauric acid, you'll see that a lot of the research is done internationally. That doesn't mean I'm a US snob, and if it wasn't done at Columbia University, hey, but they're peer-reviewed journals, and it gives an interesting twist. It says it's used to treat viral infections, including influenza, but anything else that's a virus has been treated with lauric acid. So herpes is a virus, hepatitis is a virus, HIV, excuse me. And it seems to cause what, and I'm almost quoting from an article whose link I put below there, a disintegration of the virus envelope. And one of the things that I think we've heard from Sanjay Gupta and lots of other health informers in the media is that the coronavirus has a fatty outer coating. So if you happen to have been in contact with it, soap or detergent or alcohol will destroy that fatty outside and basically render the virus useless or inactive. It cannot any longer attach itself to our body parts. And lauric acid seems to do that. It can inhibit what's called late maturation stage and prevent binding of the viral proteins to the host cell membrane. Now, I don't want anyone to log off when this is over and rush to the grocery store or the health food store and look for lauric acid on the shelf. What I want you to do is have a conversation with your health provider, perhaps someone who has a good grasp of immune system and factors that can influence it. And if there's any recent research, which I was unable to find, about how lauric acid has been used effectively to reduce either complications or after exposure to COVID to improve outcome. But I think it's very interesting that this is a natural active factor that's in a food. Now, this doesn't mean you have to purify it. I think in some of these circumstances, they basically took coconut fat and you put it on a tablespoon and swallow it. Kind of reminiscent of the days of cod liver oil. Yeah, let's move on. Next slide. Okay, so our immune system likes support, it likes anti-inflammatories, it likes the vitamins and minerals that are known to help with cell, like making those bone marrow cells, making those white blood cells. But there are things that we can also do that can inhibit how effectively the immune system is working, especially pro-inflammatory things. So one of the biggest pro-inflammatory things is smoking. What a surprise. All right, another one are certain foods. So trans fat is one of the things that's been identified as pro-inflammatory and basically impairing the body's ability to do a lot of things. And where do we find trans fat? The nutrition facts label required trans fat to be included in the late 1990s. And so the nutrition facts label is based on a portion size. So depending on what the food is, and the one that is showing on my slide says cookies. So 4 cookies is a serving size. And when you eat those 4 cookies, you're getting 0 grams of trans fat. Everybody with me on that, see? Now, if you look at the ingredients of those cookies, and by the way, I have no idea whose cookies they are. I don't know if it's Oreos or if it's, dollar store. I don't have a clue. But it says the ingredients include partially hydrogenated vegetable oil and other hydrogenated oils. And the process of hydrogenation is what creates the trans fat. So how could the number be 0? Here goes. The food label says, if your portion size trans fat is less than 0.5, you can list it as 0. So if I ate not 4 cookies, but 12 cookies, because let's be honest, really, only 4? If I ate 12 cookies, I'm probably getting trans fat in a measurable amount. And trans fat is never, ever, 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 okay, put about 10 more evers on there, never body friendly. So to the extent that you possibly can, if you see the words partially hydrogenated, try to find an alternative food which has no hydrogenation in it. In the late 90s, when the companies that make cookies and pie crusts and the like changed their formula so that they would not use hydrogenated fats, they began to incorporate small amounts of coconut oil and palm oil. I won't say that's, yes, a better idea or a worse idea, but it was an adaptation to consumer concerns about the amount of trans fat. Okay, what else is a pro-inflammatory food? Well, possibly a high amount of sugar. Now, I'm going to work on that for a second. This is not to say sugar is the kiss of death, or that you shouldn't eat strawberries or watermelon, because basically those are sugar wrapped in a very pretty red, mushy outside. But it seems as though very, very high amounts of simple sugars that your body can absorb very quickly make your body produce insulin very quickly, and that might be, for a short while, a pro-inflammatory situation. So in the end, the idea is enjoy some wonderful treats, but here we go, moderation in everything. May I have the next slide? All right, and to be healthy, we have to be hydrated. You don't have to knock out 8 glasses of water a day. My favorite water is this little bottle that came in the house as a spaghetti sauce jar, and now it lives on my desk, and I figure I'm gonna empty one of them a day or so. But you get other liquids, you get fluids from fruits, from vegetables, you get fluids from dairy, from meats, and you're getting fluids in the form of tap water, seltzer, tea, and coffee, especially that green tea. So make sure that, and sometimes we don't realize that we are underhydrated. So maybe just invite another glass of water to your desk, to your table, to the space where you put the remote control, so that you'll remind yourself to drink a little bit more water. And I'm fiercely all about tap water is the good stuff. Buying bottled water, I don't get it. I mean, you might talk me into it somewhere, but here in New York, tap water, man, that's the good stuff. Okay, next slide. So in the end, this is my next to the last slide. Before I started, I probably could have put this image up and said, memorize this, and now everybody, let's go jump in the pool. Because in the end, this is the same information that the immune system wants you to take with you. Foods high in vitamin C, foods high in beta carotene and vitamin A. Vitamin C because it's part of the role of connective tissue. Beta carotene supports the linings of the body, the lining of the lungs, the lining of the intestines, the what's across your eyes. All the foods which are rich sources of beta carotene, of fiber that help the microorganisms, the works, they're here as well. But I think it's good to still pick through and see which ones are known to have, from research, a really important outcome, a good outcome with the immune system. So my last slide, next one, please, says that we kind of have an intuitive way of saying what's the good stuff. And we can say from as far back as almost not shy 300 years ago, the Poor Farmer's Almanac said to eat chiefly from the garden, the orchard, and the hen house. And that advice is still good today. So I thank you for your attention. And I think Barbara will be our moderator if there are any other questions.
Okay, ready? I can stop sharing. You have anything else, or otherwise I'll let everybody. Okay. There we go.
I think we're good.
Okay, so I think at this time, if somebody has a question, I can answer it. Otherwise, I'm going to start. Judy.
Great.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. This is a wonderful talk. And I didn't see a link to the article in the chat, so maybe we can get it later. It was that you referred to. So
Or
what about, so my husband recently, and I guess I'll have to ask his doctor, my husband recently had a blood clot and he is on some kind of a blood thinner, but he loves turmeric. So should I really ask about that? You're saying it could be a problem?
I don't think it will be. And I'll tell you what, Judy, if I can let Barbara know, I'll do my own checking to see some sources. And I'll tell you what I'll do first is go to Google Scholar and
Okay,
then put in a search term there. Um, some of the websites like WebMD or the Harvard Health website are, I like them because they, may I say, they dumb things down. And it's okay if you talk to me like I'm 4 years old. I'm fine with that, and really spell out what's what. But there's also drugs.com that might say what nutrients or other foods may have an adverse reaction with the anti-coagulant that he's on.
Yeah,
But I
I'm
think
on a,
turmeric should be okay.
yeah, I'm on a blood thinner, so I have looked at that in the past, and I definitely would research it because after my research, I decided not to take it, but maybe I was being overly cautious. I don't know. That's just me.
okay, thank you. And one of the things,
And blood thinners are a good combo.
right. And how much, I'm vegetarian and I'm convinced I don't get enough protein. So can you give us, an estimated amount of how much protein a woman
Yeah.
should get a day?
Yes. Okay, so in a moment there, I was just thinking, should I share my screen and bother with all that? But in the the Institute of Medicine, which is part of the National Institute of Health, puts out something called the Recommended Dietary Allowance, and the amount is your weight in kilograms. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you start
Okay,
translating kilograms and pounds
okay,
times 0.8. And for most women, that's going to be somewhere around 55 grams of protein a day, a little less, a little more.
okay,
And the protein, that amount also has a margin of safety built in. So if you're shy of that, you're okay. Now, a typical half a cup of beans has 7 grams. And a typical, do you eat yogurt or drink milk?
yes,
Cow's milk?
yogurt,
Okay.
not cow's milk. I tend to have almond milk, but yogurt, a lot of yogurt and cottage cheese.
Okay, so on the nutrition facts label, it'll tell you a serving size, and cottage
Right.
cheese is going to have about 7 grams per half cup,
Mhm.
per quarter cup. I have to double check on that.
Okay,
So,
I'll look.
and then you do get some protein from your broccoli. You get a little protein from your oatmeal and your bread. You get some protein from spaghetti. No protein in fruit, not significant. And you get protein from nuts. So if you can aim for 50 a day, I think you're going to be covered.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Oh, but wait, Barbara, we have a lot of questions that are in the chat, so we're going to alternate between a person asking a question and then a chat question. So,
Okay, so let me, okay. I have a question here from Gail Lish. Does the color of bell peppers have different levels of vitamin C?
I don't think they do. The different colors are in part a hybrid plant and in part the level of maturity. So if you leave green pepper on the vine, it'll turn red. So I think they're going to be about the same. The more mature might be higher vitamin C, and the less mature slightly lower, because the vitamin C it grows in the plant as the plant matures. But that's a great question, and I'm sure there is a very finite answer. Here's my suggestion for you. If you don't mind the real annoying details, go to nutrition.gov. I'll write that in the thing, and nutrition.gov. And what it is a website supported by the government with nutrition information. If you go to the bottom of the page, there'll be a link to what is called the database, the National Food Database or something. They may call it Food Central. And when you get there, you will see there's about 900,000 foods, and you just put in your search box red bell pepper, and then you can go down and see how much vitamin C and see how it compares to green bell pepper. I mean, but it really is tedious. but it's the most, that's the database that all the apps use and all the, all the cute little blogs. They basically get the same information from that same place.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so now somebody
Okay.
who's wants
Roberta had a question.
Roberta, go ahead.
Thank you. Just as an aside, I remember reading about peppers and they said have a variety of colors, that you do get different amounts of nutrients from the different colors, and to have a colorful salad rather than just one color. My
Excellent
question,
point.
though, is about the protein. I know my sister-in-law is a doctor, and she told me that as we age, and we're all, thank God, aging, because every day we're here another day, thank God. So as we age, our bodies actually require more as we get older. My brother-in-law is 90 years old, and he has protein at every single meal. Plus, he's taking a protein supplement, a powdered supplement. So be consciously aware that what was good for us maybe when we were 20 and 30 and 40 is not necessarily the amount that we need today. You should check, I think all these things, I shouldn't say that, but I think that you should check things out with your own doctors who have never taken nutrition courses generally. They really know nothing, but try to get
Some
to
doctors do.
then go to the nutritionist, and go also, when you have questions about medication, go to the pharmacist. Especially, they're the experts on these things. They have it at their fingertips and they can look it up, as well as possibly knowing other medications that you're taking and what the interaction is going to be, especially when introducing a new medication.
Absolutely. I back you 110% on that.
So,
Okay,
all
from
right,
the chat.
I have Honey. I love cheese, but also watch my cholesterol. Can you recommend a healthier cheese, i.e. something lower in fat?
I would recommend you buy the cheese you enjoy. You like cheddar? Okay, brie cheese is a little rich, so that would be like a treat. But a fair amount of the research on the role of saturated fat from butter fat and how it may adversely affect your cholesterol level is in question now. So it's more of the amount versus the like. You're probably not eating macaroni and cheese for lunch and then a cheese souffle for dinner, and morning is a cheese omelet. I mean, so I would say cheese when you enjoy it, but not necessarily all the time. Not 3 times a day. Not, maybe once a day if that's your thing. And then your other sources of protein can be low fat, like fish, beans, very low fat. So the fat from the cheese is basically being shared with the other sources of protein. Is that okay for my chat line? That's Mahoney B.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, there you are.
Okay, so now one of the somebody who wants to ask a question. Otherwise, I have other questions on the chat. Go ahead. Oh, you have to unmute.
Luciana wants to ask a question.
Gianna, yeah,
Yeah.
she's unmuting.
Yeah, sorry. My grandmother used to say when she boiled the vegetable to save the water and drink the water because it had the extra vitamin and would be very suited to the stomach. And is that true, you think?
Yes, it is so true. There are the Southern practice, and this is Southern people. This is not necessarily white or black or immigrant or otherwise. When you boil your greens, and the liquid behind is called pot liquor,
Hot liquor.
and usually
Mhm.
delicious because somebody has already seasoned it with pieces of meat and onions and garlic or something else. And people will fight. I mean, you have to be a high status in the family to have first shot at the pot liquor. So I'm so tickled to hear that it's not just in the South, that it's global, that because you do lose some of the nutrients into the water by leaching. Even if some of the nutrients are lost from the heat, there's still some retained, and you don't want to dump that water out. So yeah, that's the good stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, all right,
Yeah,
let me
thank
ask a
you.
question here. What is the best way to get turmeric, capsule or loose, and how much? From Renee.
So the people who I've learned from have said it almost doesn't matter. That the active stuff, if it hasn't been exposed to ultraviolet light, is still good. So if you buy fresh turmeric and you grate it and you make a tea, or you buy powdered turmeric and you sprinkle it on things in eggs or something, then even the turmeric that's in mustard, those are still active. The active part has not degraded. Now, if there's any change in that answer that I wish I had said in 15 minutes, I will let Barbara know. Because we all know that when you have spices that sit on a shelf, I mean, most the chefs say you should replace your spices once a year. Oh my God, their hair would be on fire if they walked in my house. I have spices for 20 years. They still taste good. They're not bitter, but maybe they're not as, rich as they might have been day one. But I think that the turmeric is good both ways, as is ginger, powdered ginger, fresh ginger, ginger capsules look to me like a real good way to make a lot of money.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a question about Jerusalem or other artichokes. And I was about to answer that saying, I think they're all the same, but now I'm going to have to go to nutrition.gov.
No, actually, I've had Jerusalem artichokes. They're delicious. They are actually root vegetables. They're different than the artichokes. I think they're also sunchokes. They're supposed to be very good if you have for diabetics, because they are lower in carbohydrates. And they taste delicious. You can cut them up, fry them, treat them like potatoes. But
when I read the question, I wasn't picturing the artichoke plant,
right,
which I think is far too much work. All right. I was thinking the artichoke root, but they are botanically different plants. So I was wondering if my brain was going to, is the root different? And then in that case, I wanted to hesitate to answer.
Right. So
Thank
I
you for
think that was,
And
Did the question on protein powders? I just want to make sure.
Are protein powders equal in value to fresh food proteins?
They seem to be, yes. They're, now, not to put a negative flavor on it, but our supplement industry is not regulated. So it is self-regulated, which to me is code for not regulated. And protein powders are what they are. I mean, they're sort of a dehydrated version of either egg white or whey or pea protein. And I believe they do perform well, but I'm going to put another link in the called Labdoor, LABDOOR.com. Please, whenever you're wondering about anything that's a supplement, whether it's fish oil, vitamin C, whether it's chewable, multi, liquid, go to labdoor.com and search for the supplement you're looking for.
We're going to save the chat so that we'll have all of these links for people. So if they don't have time to write it down.
Cool. And the first one at the top of the chat is a link for a PDF on how the immune system works. I think I mentioned that at the very, very beginning. I just want to make sure everybody, if you're going to save the chat, we'll have that.
So I think we have time maybe for a couple more questions. Is there any verbal question from anyone? Because there is one other question from Renee. So just the question from Renee, follow up to the turmeric spices. So not capsules. You use it as a loose spice, blah, blah, blah.
I think you're going to get the same quality of active ingredient if you have powdered turmeric from the supermarket as if you buy a capsule from the pharmacy or from the health food store shelf. I don't think you can concentrate it, but here's again, I'm just a sort of ordinary kind of dietitian, and I know there are people who would talk for an hour about turmeric. There are different varieties of turmeric, like there are different varieties of apple. And so when I say turmeric, I'm speaking so generically, it's almost sad. So if someone were thinking of using turmeric as an anti-inflammatory with a real clinical outcome, like slow down the progression of like ovarian cancer. And I think that has been a study to do that. And it used a breed of turmeric that was stronger. I would research that and not assume that the stuff in the grocery store is as good, or taking twice as much will be equal. I think it deserves a closer look because there is some science behind it. I just want to make sure you're getting the right stuff.
Okay. Before, Beth Friedman has a question, but just real fast. I've heard that if you're going to be taking turmeric and you're adding your own, but a dash of black pepper, that actually helps you absorb better. If you look at all capsules, they all have a little black pepper in them.
Cool. Interesting.
So, all right, Beth, you had a question?
Yes. I wanted to know if, I think I remember reading someplace that, lower fat cheese, for example, the lower fat yogurt, lower fat cheese, that there's some disadvantages to having that, I'm just wondering if there's disadvantages to having a lower fat cheese rather than like a whole milk cheese.
That's a good question.
Cottage cheese.
Hello?
It sort of haunts me as something I might have heard in the past. So I'm going to say as a side comment, which I think I've mentioned before when I've done my presentations live, that the hatchet on cheese and butter is because of its role as a saturated fat from a bovine animal. And the research that brought us to that policy or that nutrition guideline was based on research that was sabotaged by the sugar industry. The sugar industry supported the research and publication showing the effect of fat on raising cholesterol. And it turns out that it wasn't so bad, and sugar has a role, but it didn't get published, so it didn't get into conferences and standards of care. And also the amount of hydrogenated or trans fat was probably responsible for some of the negative outcome on the studies on dietary fat. So in a way, we might have been bashing butter and bashing cheese unnecessarily or too harshly. And definitely, and may I say this because I feel like I'm an honorary New Yorker, schmaltz is okay. It doesn't have a high saturated fat content. And how much of it can you possibly eat these days, right? So we shouldn't be bashing the fat so aggressively. Now, having said that in a general way, I would rather personalize, and if someone has a profile with your cholesterol high, I might be a lot more insistent that your total fat go down. But to go back to your initial question, is there a downside of the reduced fat cheeses and the reduced fat milk products? And I don't think so. I don't remember if there is, and if there is, what it was. Because the fat is usually the source of vitamin D and vitamin A. And all of the dairy products are fortified with A and D so that they have the same amount as though it was a full fat food. Like, say that 10 times fast. Okay. So, in other words, whole milk has this much vitamin D and this much vitamin A. Skim milk doesn't, because the fat is gone. And that's where the vitamin D was. So the vitamin D is added to the skim milk.
So here's where we are in terms of time. I think we have one more question in the chat, and then Roberta's question, and then I am going to have to, unfortunately,
Okay,
move us on. But certainly if you have questions, you can send a note to Barbara or me afterwards, and we'll get those questions right to Maudene. So let's do Judy's question, and then we'll do Roberta. We'll end the session. Judy's question was, how many eggs is it safe to have in a week, and where do you buy green tea powder since somebody doesn't like the taste of green tea?
Right. I last bought my green tea powder in Chinatown, but I think any of the stores that have Asian products will have it. Now, once again, as I mentioned, people will tell me that green tea is trash. Why are you wasting your money? But I don't know the difference. And if you have if your palate for that kind of thing, like people can have a distinction about olive oil, and I don't have that. I have it for other things. So green tea powder should be any place you can find like a generous supply of ethnic foods. But that was the second part of the question. The first part was about
Number of eggs it's safe to have in a week.
Okay, so the American Heart Association still recommends your cholesterol is under 200 milligrams a day if you have high blood cholesterol levels. And an average egg is 186, 130 to 186, depending on the size of the egg and so on. So therefore, that would bring you down to maybe 2 a day and then no more for the rest of the week. Another recommendation is that it be no more than 5 yolks per week. But the egg board, the egg producers, will again gladly flood your inbox with newsletters about how eggs are not associated with high cholesterol or heart disease or a fatal heart attack. So it's a fascinating interplay of the combination of saturated fat and cholesterol and genetic predisposition as to which one. But the solid answer is 5 yolks a week.
Roberta, your question?
Thank you. I'd like to talk to people when I'm waiting online in supermarkets. And I saw a man who had a lot of corn. This was obviously a while back. And he had a big pile of corn. And I said, wow, you're having a party. I'm just, conversation. And he said, well, I use this for my stomach. And I said, really? He says, not the corn itself. It was on the cob. So you take it off and inside, what is that stuff? The hairy stuff?
Yeah, the corn silk.
The corn silk. So what he did was he said he takes the corn silk, he puts it in water, boils it up, lets it cool a little bit, and then he drinks it and it solves his stomach problems. So I'm saying to myself, is it true? So I have no idea. But I tried it. I didn't have any stomach problems. Maybe it solved it before they came. I don't know. But the other thing I wanted to just point out was when you said something about schmaltz, I was brought up on schmaltz. Nobody knew that it was good, bad, or it just tasted delicious.
Does everyone know what that is?
It comes
Chicken
from
fat.
Chicken fat.
onions that are
Henrietta's shaking her head.
Yeah, it's put together. It sounds terrible. It has the skin, and it's absolutely out of this world delicious. And when you say how much can you eat, let me tell you, I could pack it away on things. But I don't understand why it would not be considered detrimental to health, because it's coming from the fat of a chicken and the skin of a chicken even.
Do I have a minute to share my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to show you a bar graph. Okay, now I'm going to be scared that when I share my screen, I probably have a ton of things that I should have closed. Can I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we need
No,
to make her
hold on a
co-host.
second. Let me take a look because I'm participants. I have to make you a host.
Okay.
No, co-host. I just
Co-host.
made her the co-host.
Oh, you did? Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, cool. So, hold on. One of the things that I was talking about is this thing on the immune system and how it works. Okay, so I want you all to get that link and download this wonderful little pamphlet. Okay, number 2, I'm going to show you a bar graph that compares the quantity of fat in different foods. And here it goes. She said, with great deal of hope in her heart. Okay. All right. Oh, that's way too big. Okay, look, here it comes. All right, now, with our, still trying to make it fit the screen, and it's on the way. It's getting there. One more reduction, and I think I might be, how are we looking? Can you see what I got?
Yes.
Common cooking oils and fats and the type of fat. So saturated is shown in red. So you see the fat of beef is 46% saturated. The fat of butter is 51. The fat of chicken is 27. And that's comparable to cottonseed oil, to peanut oil. I mean, it's in that neighborhood. So it's the big picture of total fat and total saturated fat in the diet in general, and not whether or not you made your matzo balls with the real deal. So you could use butter at 51% saturated or chicken fat at 27% saturated. Now, I grew up on lard. So down here, this is pork fat, 36% saturated. Again, not the kiss of death, although when the guidelines came out, the fat of pork, the fat of milk, the fat of cheese, the fat of beef was definitely kiboshed. So you want to look at the big picture, and I'll be happy to share this document. It's 4 pages because it has a couple of other bar graphs just for comparative purposes. And I'll be happy to send this by email to Barbara. But I'm hoping, looking at the relative amounts of the different kinds of fat in different fat sources is revealing that this is not such a scary thing. The funny thing about coconut and palm, I'm really going on here. You could tell me, time, people have lives, but so saturated fat is really a hearty, very strong fat. It's very hard to make it to ruin it. Whereas polyunsaturated fat, so that would be like, what's this? Polyunsaturated fat is the light blue, so that's corn oil. If cottonseed oil, those are oils that if you leave them in ultraviolet light, their taste changes. If you heat them too high, they foam and they taste terrible. If they get mixed up with water, they change, because polyunsaturated fat is in a sense more fragile than saturated fat. So look at the 2 lines that have the longest saturated fat, palm kernel and coconut. And we said, what bothers fat? Ultraviolet light, water, humidity, air, and heat. So where do coconuts and palm grow? In the tropics, where it's all heat and all light and all humidity. So it's like they evolved a composition of fat that allows them to stay, the integrity of the fat to stay in place with those kind of conditions. But we have bashed the coconut and the palm oil because of that saturated fat, and it's not really clear if it really adversely affects our health. Am I making sense? Everybody went home already, right?
I have a question concerning what you just said, if it's okay.
Sure.
Okay, when you're comparing these things and you're saying like coconut oil grows in a place that obviously has to be much hotter than our climate here, but we're only taking the oil out after it's fully grown. It's not like it's being affected within the fruit itself, only afterwards, right?
Right.
Okay.
So your coconut oil will withstand a lot of external factors and stay and keep its integrity, whereas the other oils don't. I always advise everybody, if you buy canola or corn oil, keep it in the refrigerator. Don't keep it on the counter.
Because of the light?
Because of the room temperature. It potentially it won't stay. Well, maybe if you go through a lot of corn oil and you don't have it lasting forever, it should be refrigerated as to keep it safe. Not safe as far as food being unhealthy, but as far as quality.
Okay, I am going to be the heavy now and say, unfortunately, this was amazing. We said it was going to be amazing at the beginning, and it turned out to actually be more amazing than we thought. A reminder that next month, Deborah Johnson on December 10th, same time, 11 a.m., is going to be talking about root vegetables, and she'll be doing her cooking demonstration. And then we haven't discussed it yet, but hopefully back in February, maybe Maudene, you will be able to come back again. It is Heart Health Month also. So thank you very much. Have a, as blessed a holiday as possible. Yeah. And we will, again, no classes tomorrow or Friday, and we'll see everyone back on Monday.
Thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Happy
Okay,
Thanksgiving.
bye-bye.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. This is
Bye.
lovely. Thank you.
So Barbara, is it us? You, me, and Margie?
Well, I'm still here, so
I'm still here.
you want me to stay on?
No, I'm-
Yep.
You have to go?
June and Jacqueline, you can say goodnight.
Bye. Thank you.
Such sweet
Thank you.
sorrow.
Be well.
I don't know what we're talking about yet.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Be
Thank
well,
you.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So I guess I'm cooked.
You're done.
You did
You
good.
did a great job. We appreciate it so much.
I need to
saved
practice doing the slides.
You did fine. I saved the chat, so all the links that were on the chat, Barbara and I will discuss and we'll send out to all the attendees, and I'll put up on Monday the video.
Okay. And if you
So-
want me to add, to send you that bar graph with the distribution of fats.
Yeah, we'll
Okay,
send that
and-
as part of the follow-up.
Also, yesterday, I don't know, around 9:30 at night or so, I think I sent a link for a cookbook put out by
Saw
Yes.
that.
the
Yes.
grape
With the
growers.
grapes?
Yes.
Who knew, right? The grape growers have a cookbook.
Uh-huh.
And it was sort of promoted as the anti-inflammatory and the antioxidant power and the immune system power of grapes. So if that was something else you want to
I love
encourage.
grapes. So
Okay.
we will send that also. We'll send everything together, and we can even put those links in the content on the YouTube video. So
Okay.
we'll make sure everyone gets everything. This was really, I know it was a lot of work to put together and in a short time. So I, very much appreciate it.
Thanks, Margie. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank
All
you.
right. I'll see everybody.
All
Okay,
right,
take care.
Thanks, Maudene. And
Bye.
Barbara.
Bye, Jackie.
Thank you.
bye, Jackie.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome.
How do I get up?
Wants me to assign a new host.